readers, it's Tilly here from Tilly's Shelf and welcome to another bookish breakfast. And today I'm going to be doing a very impromptu review of Sparkling Cyanide by Agatha Christie, which I have just finished. And this one will count for one of the challenges for March Mystery Madness because it was published in 1945 and that means that it's a year that's divisible by 5, so that counts. So this was a completely unplanned read for me. I've been feeling like another Agatha Christie since reading Witness for the Prosecution, really. I find that they're quite addictive, and once you read one, you really want to read another. And I picked this up in a secondhand bookshop maybe about a month ago. So mostly this week I've been reading The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel, of course, and I have been kind of filming my progress with that for a planned vlog. However, last week my phone died and this week my laptop's died, so I don't really know what's going on, but whether or not I'm going to be able to edit a video, like edit together that vlog, I'm not really sure, but just let me know if you're interested in that whether or not I should try to do it. I finished book 1 and the first chapter of book 2 yesterday, and I just really wanted a bit of a break. And like, it's not that The Mirror and the Light isn't good, but it is quite dense. It is so big that I literally have to carry it in a separate bag on my way to work because it won't fit into my work bag. And I just wanted something that would be maybe a little bit more lighthearted involving plural murders. You know, as you do. So what is good about Sparkling Cyanide? Sparkling Cyanide is, aside from the completely melodramatic title and a thread of melodrama that strongly runs through this, which, I mean, it's an Agatha Christie, you know, it's fairly obvious. It's a classic Christie detective murder mystery. So it's a dinner party in like one of the posh like hotels of London, directly after the Second World War, although the war doesn't feature as much in Sparkling Cyanide as it does in other works by Agatha Christie. In which there are 7 people around a dinner table and one person is murdered. I was going to say wakes up dead, but they were already awake. Falls down dead after drinking from a champagne glass. A year later, the same party is gathered around the same table deliberately by a certain party who wishes to explore the events of that night in greater depth, and another person drops down dead. So this is not a classic Miss Marple or Inspector Poirot. Inspector Poirot? He's not an inspector. Anyway, is he? I can't remember. Help. So it's not a Miss Marple or a Poirot. Instead, the murder is investigated by an Inspector Kemp from Scotland Yard, and also 2 people who are related to the murder in certain ways. I'm not going to name them because that could give things away a little bit. We have in this book 2 debutantes, so 2 young women who've just come out into society. We have their romantic interests. We have kind of like a city businessman. We have a bit of espionage, and we have a politician as well. I think at this stage of her career, Agatha Christie had quite an interest in, well, possibly throughout her career, interest in espionage and politics, and she quite often started to bring kind of like spy-like characters into her books. We have the black sheep of the family, and they do go on and on about the fact that he is the black sheep of the family. And we have, you know, the efficient and apparently emotionless secretary. So we've got some perfect type characters, and as usual they are explained kind of succinctly, but in a way that enables you to grasp them as people quite quickly. What I would say is that none of them are overwhelmingly distinctive. Particularly the women characters in this book are just pretty much cut and pasted from other Christie books, and I think that's, like, I really love Agatha Christie, and I could read her books forever, and I can reread them as well constantly. But sometimes, if you read one at a time, her characterization is impeccable. If you read a lot, you can just see that she used the same kind of phrases or the same kind of like styles of person. And another thing that she used that starts to bother me a little bit, because I don't necessarily entirely agree with it, and it does crop up in here, is the idea that you don't really notice somebody who is, for instance, wearing a uniform or providing an expected service, I suppose, or that you don't notice a woman apart from what she's wearing. And that's not the concept that it's in here, but the idea is that people don't really look at people's faces, and that is something I don't agree with myself, but I might be wrong. But she uses that as a recurring technique, I suppose. Yeah, the ending of this one, I like it when I can guess the ending, and features of the ending I had in mind from the very early chapters. So the first chapters include all of the people who are sitting around the table thinking back to the event of the first person's death, and kind of mentally speculating on their own motives for murder. So she kind of sets us up and seeds us with a few ideas of why certain people might have wanted to do harm to the first person who dies. I kind of had the idea in my head from the start, which turned out to be the correct idea. On the one hand, I like that because it's like, hey, I managed to solve it. On the other hand, I don't, because I like it when she tricks me. And in this case, I didn't, because I felt like it was relatively weak compared to some of the other potential cases that were set up for in the book. And I think one thing that she really likes to do at the end, if she can, one thing she really likes to do at the ends of her books, if she can, is to set up a romantic couple, and I think possibly she kind of favoured the romantic storyline over the murder storyline in this book, even though the romance wasn't particularly strong. I didn't have a great amount of faith in it. It was a bit, to use the phrase, insta-love. But yeah, so it definitely not her best, but an enjoyable, light-hearted read, and it took me overnight to read it. I think in total I was reading for maybe about 3 hours, so it's not a huge time commitment. So anyway, so that was that. I still fancy another Agatha Christie, despite saying that this one wasn't absolutely fantastic. Oh, the other thing that I meant to say was reading books from 1945, particularly Agatha Christie books. I think she had a real habit, unfortunately, of doing this, is you notice the casual racism, that it was just completely normal at that point. And I mean, this edition, I think if it was a modern edition, they would just slightly edit it to avoid it, but this edition was printed in 1974, and they obviously hadn't got around to thinking about altering things like that by that stage. The particular one that stands out, I mean, there's obvious ones that are very minimal to the plot that could very easily be changed. There's a waiter who's Italian, and every single time they refer to him, they say that he looks like a monkey. Just why? But yeah, it's the 1940s for you. Yeah, I fancy another Agatha Christie, basically, so I'm popping into town today. I've got my driving theory test, so I will hopefully go to one of the secondhand bookshops in town and see if I can pick up any more of these very flimsy little paperbacks, because they had quite a few the last time I was there. And then I'm going to get back to The Mirror and the Light. The other thing that I've been reading this week and for the last few weeks is the news, quite obsessively, and a few academic articles as well about the spread of COVID-19. That has been taking up quite a lot of my reading time, and some of the time that I should have been spending working on my academic requirements at the moment. But it's been very, very interesting, and very, very impressive, the speed at which people are, getting out items of research. In case any of you are interested in reading some of those articles, I will post a link down below to the Lancet COVID-19 resource centre if you wanted to have a look at them. I would say that for the most part, even if they are in quite dense language, they're either the abstract provides a relatively plain language summary, or if you read through more towards the results section, they will normally have at least a sentence or two that summarizes things in slightly more clear English. Most of these have been picked over by journalists already, so you'll probably be seeing them in your newspaper articles. But if you wanted to go back to kind of see the science of it, as it were, then yeah, you can check out some of these. This doesn't have comprehensively all of the articles that are published, but it's my favourite link to be checking at the moment. I've just been thinking over the last couple of days that a couple of years ago we were having politicians saying, the British people are sick of experts, but now, we're desperate for experts because we really, really need the things that experts have to say to us at the moment. But yeah, so take care, everyone. Look after yourselves. Wash your hands. Don't go to any crowded places. I mean, interestingly, yeah, I don't know. possibly not don't go to any crowded places, but just don't meet up with any friends, because you're more likely to get it from your friends and your family than from a football match. But that's just my interpretation of the evidence, and I'm not in any way an expert in this. But yeah, look after yourselves, take care, and I will speak to you soon.